Hey guys, Bible in a Year, episode 46, back at it with Pastor Daniel. Going to try to catch up. We're going to double up these next 4 days and get back on track. So when Pastor James comes in to do the book of Deuteronomy, we'll be back on track. But for now, looking at Numbers 15 to 19 today, a lot of good stuff in here. Join with us here today. Okay, guys, there we go. Numbers 15 to 19. Good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry I was out.
It's all good.
I told them the last couple of episodes it was nice that everybody gave me a little space to handle, the passing of my mom. But We're all good, and we're rejoicing in the fact that she walks with God. But we've got a lot to get into here today with Numbers 15 to 19.
Yeah.
There's a lot here, but two primary things. We get into another rebellion. These last couple of days we talked about Aaron and Miriam rebelling against Moses. Well, we've got another rebellion that occurs.
Yeah.
And you see the sovereignty of God on Aaron as priest.
Mm-hmm.
So any initial thoughts as we start?
Yeah, I think you have, after, and we're going to continue to see disobedience.
It never ends.
Right, in the rebellion and an unsuccessful attempt into the promised land. And you're going to have some of those things. But really, I think for me, when you look at the start of 15 up through 2021, you start to see this wondering, this condemning of the next 40 years in the wilderness. And there's a lot going on here, and that's really my initial thoughts is like, all right, this is where we're going to be for the next 40 years. And you would hope that in understanding that this is what we're going to have to do, that maybe we would figure it out, but there isn't so much.
They never figure, you're right. You are 100, they like, it's funny, your words are almost an offering of grace.
Yeah.
Because you and I both know they never figure it out. And you're right. You referenced their refusal to cross 12, 13, 14
Mm-hmm.
of Numbers, which, we talked about that yesterday. But they're trying to hold it together.
Right.
But like even Moses and Aaron go down in this section. Even Moses and Aaron.
Huge. That's a huge deal. And, I think like for me, like that statement, and I've talked about things like this before, like the statement of like figure it out. Like when if I'm saying that, there's typically some emotion attached to it, like frustration, or like I don't think you ever see that from God. Like yes, He's like, all right, we are going to figure out, instead of like saying figure it out, right? And so He's not projecting in the fact that He doesn't love His people. And you'll see that later on towards the end of this book of like they're trying to be a curse projected on these people, and it can't be. Only God, the only thing that be brought is blessing upon the people of God. And so I think it's just a huge testament of like, even in the midst of we can't figure it out, God's there, God's still sovereign, God's still loving them and leading them forward, even though there is some trials along the way.
So let me offer this one more piece of contextual kind of wisdom as we start this discussion. You're a parent of 2. I'm a parent of 3. And even though my kids are older, it still works the same as parent to child.
Mm-hmm.
So often, kids can only see what's immediately in front of them. And even with my kids being in their 20s, they obviously don't have the same experience in life that Leslie and I have. Your kids are amazing kids. Like, they blow my mind.
God.
And you've told me that, the prayers they pray, the things they say, the passion that they have for Jesus. But their view is still very
limited.
It is. As a parent, your view is far wider.
Yeah.
It's even higher. It's like you're taking an aerial view at things rather than being right up on it.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Israel is living right here in this moment, even Moses and Aaron. And, if Israel's here, Moses and Aaron are here, but they're clearly not taking this from an aerial view. And they get caught up in the moment as well, and they cannot see things. Well, let me rephrase. We can always see if we're willing to hold in submission to God.
Yeah.
They're not seeing from an eternal perspective
Right.
as they're walking through this, and that's why they failed across the Jordan. That's why Miriam and Aaron rebel against Moses. It's why we see what happens in Numbers 16 with Korah, Dathan, Abiram.
Yeah.
It's why God says, look, bring 12 staves from all the tribes,
Yeah.
and I will see that Aaron's staff not only buds, but blossoms and produces almonds. It's that statement of sovereignty. But they're really struggling with this to see, look, guys, this isn't about you.
Right.
It's not about Moses being in charge. It's not about this tribe over that tribe.
Yep.
This is about you all coming together as one under the headship of the one true and living God and making that known to the world. But they just don't get it.
And like there are times, like back to what you're saying about parenting, there are times where we will say to our kids, like, or like I'll say to my wife, like, just wait a second. Like, let's see what happens here.
Yep.
Like, let's see what happens here. And like, I think like, I think this is like one of the places where people would say, like, where we get the misconception of God's yielding a lightning bolt in his hand, ready to smite us or strike down on us. It's like, no, like, this is actually a place where God's like, hold on a second. Let's see what they do here. And as a result of the decision, there's consequences, right? And it's not like God is invoking this and bringing upon this punishment to damn his people. No, he's actually saying, like, you can't see it's what you were saying. You can't see what you actually need to see. And so like we get this beautiful example in, I believe it's in 17. Yeah, it's in 17 of this staff.
Oh, it's amazing.
Sprouting. So all good stuff.
So let's just keep going with this theme because it seems like where we're at.
Yep.
So let's say we're only looking from here.
Okay.
We're going to miss Numbers 15, 13 through 16. So take a look at that if you guys would. Numbers 15, 13 through 16. Everyone who is native born must do these things in this way when they present a food offering as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. For the generations to come, whenever a foreigner or anyone else living among you presents a food offering as an aroma pleasing to the Lord, they must do exactly as you do. The community is to have the same rules for you and for the foreigner residing among you. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. You and the foreigner shall be the same before the Lord. The same laws and regulations will apply both to you and the foreigner residing among you. So if you're looking at it from a very subjective point of view, you see that only for the purposes of a foreigner living within the nation of Israel. If you're looking at it from an objective, eternal view, what God is actually saying there is, listen, Genesis 12, Abraham,
huge.
Through you, all nations will be blessed. It's the same reason Jesus gets kicked out of the Nazareth synagogue. He talks about, the widow of Zarephath and Naaman. Those weren't Jews. Those were people on the outside looking in, and they're willing to kill him for that. It's Paul's ministry to the Gentiles.
Yep.
That's why we have to have a Jerusalem council in Acts 15, because people are only seeing right here.
Yeah.
And we always have to be seeing with eternal eyes.
Yeah.
So hold I know you have something to say.
I'm good.
But hold that thought. You get over to number 16 with this rebellion of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Okay? Just follow with me here, guys. Number 16, 1 through 4. Korah, son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, okay, which is also huge, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, son of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, you talk about short-sighted view. You've gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly? They are only seeing this in a very short-sighted view, and it's saying basically, what's in it for us? You think you're better than us. You think you're higher than us. And what's Moses' first move? When Moses heard this, he fell face down. I mean, that's what's happening. And when you get over to verse 48, when the ground opens up and the plague has started, all the way over in verse 48, again, what is Moses doing? He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. You talk about messianic in nature, standing between the living and the dead. I will take the brunt of this in order for death not to come to these people anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's the difference between saying, hey, wait a minute, God talks to us too. Did we just go through this with Miriam and Aaron? And you guys, you learned nothing? And it's kind of funny because when you read the Psalms, the sons of Korah are in there too. And I know it says that the ground opened up and their children fell in. I know it says all that. But apparently there were some that got the message.
Yeah.
And their descendants after them said, hey, let's not forget this. We need to be worshipers of God and acknowledge whoever it is that God has put in that position to be leader. Again, not as over us, but with us, pointing to the headship of Christ.
Yeah. The rigidity of these people in these moments is just, I don't know. As you were speaking, it was making me think of something I shared 2 weeks ago on Sunday morning about living a life as a follower of Christ where we pull up weeds and sow seed in the place of the weeds that we pull up. So exposing the lies in our life that we may have believed for all of our existence. And some of the times those things aren't bad things, but we can get rigid to that's the way that we think it's done. And I know this is a little different concept. Like, if my dad taught me how to fish, and someone else comes along to fish, and I say, no, that's not the way you fish. Well, no, like there's more ways to fish.
There's 500 ways to fish, right?
Like just because it's, just because you do it that way doesn't make it the right way, But that's what I'm saying, like the rigidness and really pride.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Pride is the issue to say, well, like I'm right, and like I should be important, and what are we talking about here, And I just think there's a misappropriating of that when we're like, hey, guys, we're on the same team here, and we're all following the Lord, and He's the one that's in charge, and our lives should say that.
It's interesting that you're talking about that, and some of you guys know I'm getting the same master's degree that Pastor Daniel has right now, and I'm in my early stages of this. You get over to Ephesians 4, and I just wrote about this. It says, so Christ Himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers. You have the gift of healing. You have the gift of miracles. That's not the type of gift that is spoken of here.
Right.
Those gifts are how the role plays out. Mm-hmm. This is the role itself.
Yes.
And so I say that to say, Moses and Aaron are no more important than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what these guys are saying. Hey, no, we're important too. And it's like Moses and Aaron could look at them and go, you are.
Yeah.
You are important. But it goes back to what you were just saying. It comes down to egotism here.
It does.
These guys are prideful and saying, no, you think you're better. We're better.
Yeah.
And Moses is like, what are you talking about?
Right.
We're all in this together. I'm just playing the role that God called me to. That's man, if it was up to me, I would have been back on the mountain taking care of sheep. I'd have never come to Egypt in the first place. But I begin to realize, this is the role that God wants me to play, and I need to be humble within it.
Yeah.
We deal with this around here 100%. As well. Your role, my role, James's role, Bob's role.
So think about what we said when we first started Numbers. We said Pastor Kevin was going on a vacation with his family, and his sons were getting ready to get in the car, and the marching orders are given, and everybody plays a role in the car, right? Everybody on the team plays a role. Like when I played college football, everyone on the defense had a responsibility, and as long as everybody did what they were responsible for, it always worked out. But when you tried to do my job and I tried to do your job, then we had a misplacement. And what happens is the reason there's a breakdown in the trust here, or it's just straight pride that rises up and says, I can do that better than you can. Well, that's not your role. It's irrelevant whether you can do that better or not. Why don't you do what God has called you to do, and I'll do what God has called me to do, and somehow that will glorify God more than it'll glorify me and you, and He'll get blessed because of it. Like this is the life of the body of Christ. And it's even carries over into the New Testament, the New Covenant, to say, hey, check this out. We're a body made up of different parts, but every part is important. You better just play the role of the part you've been called to play.
That's it,
and that's huge. But that's what you're seeing here. People saying, "Nah, I'm good. I'd rather be the leader, or I'd rather be the head. I don't want to be the finger. I want to be the heart. I want to be the mouthpiece." Well, no. Like that's not how this works. God has called people to be those things. If He'd have called you to be the mouth, you would be the mouth. But instead, you're not happy with what God has called you to, and there's consequences with that.
100%. I think
So-
there's no better way to stop this section than what you just said. So, guys, tons of stuff here. We've touched on one thing here today, but honestly, get a big picture and make sure you just stay in your lane. I mean, if you can take anything out of today's lesson, don't see it like this. See it like that, and just stay in your God-ordained lane. Great lesson today. God bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.